Good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. I'm going to pull up the forms here. I'm so excited about some of the celebrations, and we're going to talk about choices and fear and love today and getting a little bit into negativity, positivity, just kind of some thoughts around that and see where the conversation takes us. So if you join in while we're talking, go ahead and put any comments in the chat. If you don't get something answered, just remember to put it in your group form for next week. So I'm going to pull those forms up. I already got to review them already this morning, and it guided me as to what we were going to be talking about. So now I just want to read them and be able to get you the words word for word. Okay. A couple of really exciting ones I wanted to stop off with right away, and then that's going to lead us to our deeper dive today. We had a client report cholesterol went down by 42 points in 1 year, no longer having high cholesterol. The doctor said this is an impressive decline, and the client believes this is likely a result of going gluten-free, dairy-free, and now lactose-free. And that absolutely can happen. It absolutely can be the inflammatory things that you're adding into your diet. It's also going to lead into what we're talking about today, because I believe a few sessions back, I shared the hormone steroidogenic pathway. And remember, I don't look at cholesterol and think, oh, that's a bad high number. We've got to drop that. We've got to get that down. I'm looking at it like, why is it high? What system is not doing its job? What part of this pathway is not doing its job? And so we look at all the organs and the glands and the systems of the body to make sure that they're doing their work, like the liver, for example. But a huge part of why cholesterol ends up being high is if we're in constantly a state of stress or sympathetic dominance, SAM state, and your body has more demand for cortisol. Well, cortisol is going to rob progesterone, and progesterone is made from cholesterol. Cholesterol makes all of our hormones. And so we have to understand that maybe it's deficiency downline. The cortisol is demanding too much. Excuse me. Maybe we have some deficiency in hormones, and that's why our cholesterol is higher than it should be. So yes, likely that you removed some inflammatory foods and that made a big difference, helped your liver to function better, which means you can have better clearing of cholesterol. But it also might be because you're getting out of that SAM state. Your body is requesting less cortisol, and so you are not needing to make as much cholesterol in order to meet that demand. So a couple things to think about there. Either way, keep going, keep doing what you're doing because it's obviously working. Listening to a conference on vestibular disorders, that made sense to me. For those that have vestibular symptoms, our bodies do go into fight or flight because they aren't sure if they're safe, and they continue to do so because the body isn't sure when a vertigo attack might happen. That was a big aha for you. Now I know why I'm so often in fight or flight. That is huge. For those of you in program and have already gone past the SAM and PADI module, we talk about sympathetic dominance all the time. And it's not just vestibular symptoms that you could be having. A person can go into fight or flight, and it can be all kinds of symptoms. So for this particular client, it's the vestibular things, ringing of the ears, dizziness, vertigo, that kind of thing, headaches, migraines. But those are not the only symptoms that can be different for every person. But it is absolutely true that your body will go into a state of fight or flight, or what we call hypervigilance, because you don't believe you're safe. You don't know when another attack of any kind is going to happen. And this is kind of the state that we've gotten to just as a generalized state in our culture, because we are so aware of stress, anxiety, productivity, trauma. Trauma is such a buzzword right now. And it's almost like, if I don't have trauma, I better find some, because that's just what everybody's talking about. And I've said a million times, because that's part of our mission statement, is we believe that the body cannot heal if it does not believe it's safe. And so the first thing we have to do when people come in is, of course, we address the physical symptoms, but we have to address the why, the root cause, but we go even beyond that. We have to understand where the nervous system got off track. We have to get the nervous system to agree with us. We have to get the nervous system to get into a state where it believes that it's safe. If not, it is not going to heal. And here's why. SAM state, PADI state. SAM state is the sympathetic dominance, the fight or flight, the hypervigilance. This is a survival state. You literally are waking up and living your day and going to bed in survival. you're thinking about your survival and your safety all the time. It becomes a very self-preserving state. It's very hard to attract like loving frequency, gratitude frequency. You have to try really hard to be happy. And it's not just this natural thing we feel from the outside of us, which if we put it out, that's what we would be getting back. And we would feel more at peace and at calm. That's not what happens in a survival state. In a survival state, you're just thinking about the survival of me, the survival of myself. It's very hard to attract anything else that you're wanting at that time. It's very hard for the physical being to function at that time because it's only thinking, what do I need to do for me to survive this day? So it's doing the bare minimum, using the least amount of energy that it possibly can, and it's shutting off every other function that isn't necessary for you to literally survive, not thrive. So like eating is oftentimes a thrival state. You're not thinking about eating if you're surviving. You're not thinking about digesting and breaking down nutrients if you're surviving. The patty state is the parasympathetic, and that is the only state where the body can physically heal from because all systems are functioning. We're not putting any energy towards survival. We're putting this energy on thrival. We're putting this energy on beingness and life, all the things of life, living and loving and laughing and having fun. And Pad state is the only state that the body can heal in because it is not directing neurotransmitters and chemistry towards a state of survival. So no matter what your symptoms are, you first have to ask yourself, where is my resistance? What am I being in survival state over? A good question to ask about that is, am I making decisions from a feeling of fear or from a feeling of love? And we've talked about that in a past episode too, where you really only make decisions from two emotional states, fear or love. Fear is fight or flight. Love is parasympathetic side, thrival. And I don't mean love as in this, human romantic love, but I mean that fullness and that wholeness and that completeness within you. And in that state, that is where you are putting out a different energy. You're putting out a different frequency. Your cells are feeling a different frequency. You're attracting that level of frequency back to you. That level of frequency is higher. It's a more abundant place. It is a loving place. It is more attractive. And so everything tends to be better. Your money is better. Your health is better. Your friendships are better. Your relationships are better because of the frequency that you have been responsible to put out and care enough about feeling. And then you don't have to do anything specific. That's what then comes back to you. That's how that works. So your goal really is, I would like to get people to a state of understanding that it may be the rash that brought you in or the digestive troubles that brought you in. And we have to deal with those also. But we put so much attention on the what's wrong, what's my diagnosis, and here's how I'm feeling, and I'm stressed and anxious about all of this that I'm feeling. And it's not that we want to poo-poo that, we don't. But it inevitably is a consequential state because of the messaging from the nervous system. And it really does come down to something as simple as that. You are going to have health based on the messages that your body is giving. It's perceiving messages, and then it's giving messages to the rest of the body. And it is doing that from a state of fear or hypervigilance or a state of thrival. So are you in survival or are you in thrival? The longer you're in survival, the more symptoms you're going to have, the more weird symptoms you're going to have, the more wacky, misunderstood symptoms you're going to have, the more anomaly you're going to be, the more your doctors can't figure you out, because that's what happens. The longer the system cannot function, it can't do things normally. And yet there wasn't a disease that started off that caused it. So we have to back off to where did the nervous system get off track? And oftentimes you can pinpoint it to a trigger or an event or a series of triggers or events or an emotional state. You can generally kind of pinpoint it down to something. And if you can, then you can kind of take yourself back there and think, this is where my nervous system got off track. How can I get back in alignment? How can I feel these feelings that told my nervous system that I'm not safe anymore? And do I want to hang on to those feelings? Because hanging on to those feelings is going to keep me in a state of victimization. If I'm in a state of victimization, I am going to be in a state of hypervigilance, sympathetic dominance. And what's really hard about that is we want to be acknowledged for our feelings. We want to be understood. We want to be heard. We want to we want our feelings validated because that's the truth and we within us, and we want people to understand what we're going through. But then I think we have to boundary that a little bit, and we have to honor those feelings and then let those feelings be a tool. It's just allowing us to have a place to put that pain. The emotion is allowing us to have a place to put that anger or that frustration. But any feeling that is not love is a separation from love, is a separation from source. And so the tools of emotions are meant to let us take a look at where we're off track. Now, if we stay in that feeling state and we stay in that emotion state and we stay needing that validation for our feelings, we're going to stay in the survival state. And so there is a fine boundary of being able to honor and acknowledge where you're feeling for the purpose of a tool, letting it be a tool of inspiration for you. And then you get to acknowledge, oh, this is where that feeling is coming from. Do I want to stay in that feeling because it's going to keep me over here? And so then we can shift consciously and look at, I don't want to be separated from love. I don't want to be separated from my highest self. I don't want to be separated from source. I don't want to be separated from my best life. I don't want to be separated from my highest truth. I want to take and heed how I feel, and that I have the ability to be at peace or calm or happy in any state that I'm finding myself. I'm learning from the emotion. I'm acknowledging the emotion. I'm validating the emotion. I'm seeing it as a tool. And then I'm deciding where I want to stand in relationship to that emotion after I've learned from it. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. I know for myself what had changed for me years back was when I started getting this idea in my head I called chi in all things. And chi I just meant as love and gratitude and abundance and beauty in everything. And so I really started focusing my day on finding chi in all things, finding love and gratitude in all things. And it wasn't to be positive, it wasn't to be toxically positive. It was because I could see how in a survival state my body stayed when I wasn't watching for that. And so when I understood love is the ultimate vibration, it is the connected source power. And if I don't want to be separated from, why would I want to separate myself from that in any way? And so I started seeing the challenges in life as simply that. Anywhere that I'm separated from love means that's my journey. That's what I still have to learn from yet. And so if I'm feeling feelings of guilt or if I'm feeling the feelings of anger, that's my journey, because those are the feelings that are separating me from the highest that I can be. And so it started making sense that I didn't want to be separate from the best that I could possibly be. So I started really paying attention to how I was feeling, and I started just watching for chi in all things. I started watching for love in all things. I started watching for gratitude in all things. And it did make me less self-concerned. And it does have an interesting way of, you get shifted into this parasympathetic. You're laughing more and smiling more and humming more and stimulating things more. And so you're more easy to thrive. And if you're easier to thrive, you're feeling happier. And if you're feeling happier, you're feeling more giving and selfless. And if you're more giving and selfless, you're attractive to different things and different people. And if you're attractive to different things and different people, your relationships are better, your money is better, your career is better. All things end up being better. And your body gets into this state of relax and trust, where now the systems can operate how they want to, how they need to, how they know they innately are intended to. And that is a huge part of healing. And I don't want to poo-poo what your body is actually doing. I mean, the things that I experienced were pretty darn intense. And I obviously something was going on. I'm in a wheelchair. I can't walk. I'm 88 pounds. I look like a war criminal victim. I look like I can't move. I look like I have MS. It's pretty intense, and your body will be in pretty intense states. But when they say stress is such an impact on your physical health, I just see it so differently now. It's the survival feeling of stress that you cannot possibly get into a state like the parasympathetic side of healing. And when we are focused so much on what is wrong, I'm scared, and it's because of fear. I'm scared. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm going to die. I don't know what these symptoms are. Something's really bad wrong with me. We just continue that cycle. And so I would challenge you to allow yourself to acknowledge the physical needs and do the physical needs without attachment. You know, do the ointments, do the therapies, do the things that you have to do to maintain or manage or keep your symptoms under control with a sense of disattachment. Stop trying to find out what is wrong with you. Start looking for the reasons of how you got off track and see where you come from there. Anytime that you're starting to feel anxious, recognize that you're now living from a state of fear rather than love. You are living from a state of being separate from all that you have available to you. And that's never going to get us to our goals. So I hope that that gives you some things to think about today. Let's see. So pushing what has been challenging, a number of people in their forums said things about symptoms. And so that's kind of why I wanted to talk about this also. Your symptoms are like your feelings. They are meant to be a dashboard. They're meant to send you an alert. A symptom does not even necessarily have to mean it's an emergency state. It's just, hey, this is how I'm functioning. And so this is the result of that functioning. Hey, I'm running on empty. And so the result of running on empty is my gas light's going to pop up. And it's going to stay there until you fill it up with gas or give it what it needs. And it's the same with our body. Just because symptoms are happening, it does not help us to get in that hypervigilant state and attack the symptoms and stress about the symptoms. We can acknowledge them and we can say, oh, come from a place more of curiosity, like, oh, that's interesting. That's happening now. I'm going to disattach from it. I'm going to tend to what my physical needs are, all at the same time as I'm working with myself as a whole being. Okay. When we have any symptoms, it's for you, it's going to be vertigo and dizziness, and you're just going to think about that constantly. And for you, it's going to be the pain in your back and the pain in your shoulder, and you're going to think about that constantly, which is funny because those will go away, and then it'll turn to knee pain and headaches. And the thing is you focus so hard on the symptom, you focus so hard on answering that dashboard light to fill the gas tank that you didn't address the other things behind those symptoms. And so we're never here to band-aid over a symptom. We are here to use symptoms as an understanding and an acknowledgement that something isn't functioning as well as it could be and should be. So try to be acknowledging of the symptom, be aware, interested, observer. Oh, this is interesting. I'm having this symptom now. Is this a life-threatening symptom? No. Okay, so I'm going to keep learning from it. What if I don't know if it's a life-threatening symptom? Don't Dr. Google it. Ask your body. Ask your body what else it is doing. Do I feel like I am in a state of running from a tiger? What can I do about this symptom? But don't get so focused on the symptoms that that's what your life is about. Get focused on learning to live the life you want. And that's where we generally get off track. We're so busy being productive. We're so busy paying attention to our worries and our anxieties. And we're so busy living from fear. We have completely forgotten about living from our highest self, living from, not from expectation, but living from where this love source is bringing us that day. And I know that may sound just kind of really out there, but I'm planting some seeds. And I'm curious to hear what the conversations after this will be. Okay, under needing support for this week, are there foods that can reduce vertigo or foods that can cause it? And I guess the answer to that would be yes, of course. But the foods are not the cause of the vertigo. It's the state of the body. It's the state of the conditioning. Because if the dairy was causing the vertigo, it would always cause vertigo, and it would cause it in every person, and it would cause it for you in every day. And generally the foods are not, you're not going to feel the vertigo every day in the same way. So it can't be a food that you're constantly eating that is causing that. Now, having said that, anything that causes inflammation is going to change how the body's systems function. And so, yes, there can be foods that can cause more inflammation. Again, the goal isn't avoiding the food. The goal is reducing the inflammation. I wouldn't focus on, again, you're focusing on the vertigo, the vertigo, and think instead about what is behind the vertigo is this idea that I have to stay in the sympathetic dominance. You're not consciously keeping yourself in that state of sympathetic dominance. It is what your body is doing as a reactive state, as a protective state, but now you are aware of it. Now that you are aware of it, you can say, am I making these decisions out of fear or out of love? I'm so focused on the vertigo and what I can do for the vertigo that I'm not addressing where my energy should be going, which would be much more efficient, would be this backed up place, this place where I realize I got off track. And so no matter what you're faced with, you're in an emergency state, you think there's something wrong with your heart, that the best thing that you can do is, how do I shift into a Patty state? I know I'm scared. I know I'm stressed. There is something not right. There's something not happening here. It's very likely to be in a Sam state in that place, but you're not going to help yourself because you're not going to be coherent in your brain and your heart. Your messages that are going to get sent are all going to be stress messages, and you're not going to be thinking clearly. So no matter what state you're in, when you recognize that you're making decisions from fear or you're feeling fear, automatically think about the Patty state. Get yourself into that Patty state so that you can have access to all the functioning. And then you'll be able to determine to what level of threat are you under. Okay, again, symptoms and feelings are just dashboard indicators. Do not put so much focus on how to address the symptom, put more focus on where did I get off track. And even if I don't know where I got off track, how can I help my body be in a state where it can heal, which means Patty state. Hope that makes sense. So no, I'm not going to focus much on what foods can or cannot cause it because it's different for everybody depending on where your state is. But if you're in a good functional state, the foods are not going to be a problem. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I was thinking, I mean, but we know that inflammation foods, we know the inflammatory foods are sugar, dairy, grains, typically, anything processed, typically. So no matter the symptom, this is just a good reminder and a good time to remind you that as close to nature as possible, whole foods as close to nature as possible, as close to what God intended, as close to what earth can grow them. If they are farther and farther away from their origin, they are worse and worse for you. So I would say instead of focus on specific foods, again, that are addressing a symptom, what are the natural foods? What are the natural states I can be in? What are the natural things that I can do that cause health? They don't necessarily have to directly attack a symptom, but they cause health of the whole being, of the whole structure. So always think whole foods that are as close to nature as possible, as uncooked as possible, if it's a nice raw fruit or vegetable, for example, and try to process it yourself as little as you possibly can. Okay, I hope that that is helpful. Happy to look forward to any conversations that this pops up. And I've been kind of playing with our attendance a little bit, seeing when there's better times and dates for us. So I've been kind of jumping around of when these videos will happen. I'm planning for next week again. So those of you that want to be live, you can plan on being here at 9 o'clock on Tuesday. Otherwise, watch the replay. Okay, guys, have a fantastic week. See you.